Hold your breath, okay?
The first rule of the midnight intrusion is that they don't want your things. They want your fear. I learned that when I saw the man standing in my dark living room, not moving, just watching me sleep, a pair of my own kitchen knives held loosely in his hands. My heart didn't just pound, it tried to escape my ribs. I was on my back, paralyzed by the sudden wakefulness of seeing someone in my own home, the digital clock on my side table screaming 12:07 a.m. The shape was tall, backlit by the orange street lamp glow through the blinds. He was just a silhouette of sharp angles, and the 12-inch blade of polished steel caught the light in a dull gleam. Don't move. Don't breathe. Those primal commands screamed in my skull. This wasn't a dream. The air was cold, smelling of ozone and something else. Something like old pennies. He took a step forward. Not a normal step. His leg lifted too high, the foot landing with a soft, deliberate tap on the hardwood. Then the other. Tap. He was at the foot of my couch now. I could see the details the shadows hid. His face was covered by a smooth, featureless rubber mask, the kind you'd buy for $1. But it was the blades I couldn't look away from. He slowly cutting one across the arm of the couch. Snick, snick, snick. The sound was precise, surgical. He wasn't threatening me with them. He was showing me the tool he was about to use. My dangling hand crept, millimeter by millimeter across the floor toward the fork I knew was there. Right on my dinner plate I left on the floor when I fell asleep. Everyone says if you don't move, if you don't make a sound, you'll be fine. But fuck that. I needed something to help with the terror inside my body. Nobody knows what these people or things are, or why they started showing up 6 months ago. We don't know if it's one or many. All I know tonight was my turn. My fingertips brushed the cool, familiar edge. Almost there. The man tilted his head, the motion unnervingly alien. He stopped slicing at the arm of the couch and pointed the blade directly at my hand. He knew. He lunged, and I almost shit myself. It wasn't a stumbling in the dark thing. It was a snake uncoiling burst of speed. The weight hit me, cold and heavy, knocking the air from my lungs. A hand, smelling of dirt and gasoline, clamped over my mouth. The cold steel pressed against my throat. Shh, a voice whispered, hot and ragged against my ear. It sounded almost human, and at the same time not at all. It was the grating of stones deep underground. This is the quiet game. You scream, and the game gets messy. The pressure on my throat increased. I felt a hot, sharp sting, then the warm trickle of blood down my neck. This was it. This was how I died. But then the weight lifted. He rolled off me, almost graceful, and stood up beside the couch, as if nothing had happened. He walked backwards to the center of the room, never moving his gaze from me, and resumed his silent vigil. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. He stood there. Every so often his body jerked, as if he was going to rush me again, but held himself back. And each time a fresh wave of panic came over me. And there he stayed, waiting for me to fail at his game. The clock now read 12:25 a.m., and the intrusion had only just begun.
The scratching at the back door started at exactly 12:11 a.m. I thought it was a branch or a raccoon. Then I saw the fingers wiggling through the crack under the door. I was in the kitchen. Not that I wanted to be at that hour, but I almost forgot again. Filling the glass of water, alone in the big old farmhouse. I almost didn't hear it, but as I brought the cup to my lips, I stopped. The sound was soft, but persistent. Scritch, scritch, scritch. I froze, the water forgotten. I peered through the small window in the door. Nothing but the blackness of the fields beyond. My breathing started to pick up as I stared at the black glass. and thinking not for the first time I really needed to cover that with curtains. Then I looked down. 5 fingers, long and dirty, slid like pale worms through the gap at the bottom of the door. They curled, scraping at the air. A low gurgle came from the other side. This wasn't an animal. I stumbled back, my hip hitting the counter. I needed a weapon, a knife. I yanked the biggest chef's knife from the block. The fingers withdrew. Silence. Had they gone? I edged forward, my breath held. A face slammed against the window pane. A woman's face, her dirty hair so oily it looked wet, her eyes wide and unblinking. A string of saliva dripped from her slack jaw. When her eyes found me, she smiled. Then she slammed her forehead against the glass. Thump. A spiderweb of cracks appeared. Thump. Another. She wasn't trying to break it quickly. She was enjoying it. Enjoying my face twisted with disgust and fear. I turned to run, to grab my keys and get in my car, to get the hell out. And I saw him. A man was standing on my porch. I can see silhouette through the thin curtains covering the picture window. He held a hatchet, tapping the blade gently against the glass. Tap, tap, tap. I was trapped. The back door groaned as the woman threw her weight against it. The window frame bulged inward. I backed into the center of the kitchen, the knife held out in front of me with both hands. The hatchet tapping from the front stopped. I risked a glance. The man was gone. A new sound started, a rhythmic, metallic clang. He was at the side of the house. I heard it again. Was he beating on the propane tank? I smelled it then, the sharp, rotten egg odor of gas flooding the air, seeping in through the vents. Fuck! The woman at the back door stopped pounding. She started laughing, a high, hysterical sound. They weren't just here for me. They were here to burn my whole world down. I decided if I was going out, I would take them with me. I lunged for the kitchen door, knife raised, screamed my fear and hatred at them. Suddenly, silence. The gas smell vanishes. The kitchen is empty. The window is intact. I'm standing barefoot in the kitchen, alone, holding nothing but air. No knife, no intruders. I blink and shake away the throbbing in my head. I stumbled toward the sink, on the counter. The glass of water I'd poured earlier sat untouched. And next to it, the pills. My stomach dropped. I can't forget again. The doctor said I can't forget to take my meds. My hands shook as I reached for my little lifelines, ready to wash them down. That's when I see the window above the sink. My reflection stared back at me. I take a breath to steady myself. I stare at myself, the dark circles until my eyes, the sheen of sweat that covers my face. And that's when I notice another reflection, just behind mine. It tilts its head. I didn't have time to scream before the glass spiderwebbed and shattered, raining shards into the sink. The pills slipped from my fingers, vanishing into the drain.
At 12:15 a.m., my daughter asked me to check under her bed. I bent down and saw her staring back at me from the dark. I've got kids. You don't ignore anything that happens in their room after they're supposed to be in bed, especially after midnight, no matter how tired you are. So when I heard a yelp in the dead of night that sounded like Emmy, I shot out of bed. The house was dark and I didn't hear anything else. Maybe I was dreaming. But I decided to go check on her anyway. I open the door and she's in her bed. The nightlight casts a glow and I see her back is to me. So I was about to close the door when I hear, "Daddy, can you check under my bed?" She turns over and gives me a little smile. I sighed, made my sluggish legs walk across the room and kissed her forehead. I knelt down and lifted the blanket edge, the words already coming out. "See, honey, there's nothing." And froze. Because she was already there. My daughter. Same pajamas. Same hair tied in a crooked ponytail. Her wide eyes locked on mine. "Daddy, that's not me." My blood turned to ice water. Above me, the Emmy I'd tucked in giggled. I jerked back, heart jackhammering. She was still on the bed, but was sitting up now, her beautiful smile in sharp contrast with the terrified expression under the bed. "Go back to bed, Daddy," the one on the bed whispered. Her voice dragged, coming out just a little slower, a little deeper. My eyes looked back to the Emmy hiding under the bed. She was crying now. She mouthed, "Please don't leave me." I jumped up, grabbed the girl on the mattress by the arm, hard enough to make her yelp. Her skin was cold, like a slab of meat. She hissed like a cat, her face twisting, jaw unhinging wider than it should. The Emmy under the bed screamed. My heart was in my throat now. What the fuck was happening? "Honey, come out, come to Daddy!" She screamed louder. Then I heard scratching and realized she was scrambling to get from under the bed. I reached to grab her hand, arm, anything to help her up. That's when she burst from under the bed, scuttling on all fours like a spider. She moved across the room, up the wall, and into the corner of the ceiling, her upside-down face still crying. I yanked back my arm from the one on the bed, stepping back from both of these things. Realizing I have no idea where my daughter was. "Emmy!" I scream out. The one on the bed and ceiling are watching me. I can feel their eyes on me like ants crawling over my skin. Then, the closet opens a crack. A tiny hand and arm reaches out of the darkness. I bolt to her when I hear, "Daddy?" I stop. Everything stops. I turn. It's Riley, rubbing sleep from her eyes. I turn back to the room. Nothing. No creatures. No Emmy, no furniture. It's an empty room once more. I stand there in the middle of the room for a second, willing myself to keep it together. I go to Riley then. I drop to a knee and hug her. She's only 2 years old than Emmy when she died. When that drunk driver took half my world. Emmy and her mother, gone. Forever. I cling to my last remaining child. I tell her it's okay. Daddy was just looking around. I shut the door behind me, take Riley's hand, and walk her back to her room. I'm lost in my own thoughts when we reach her threshold. Then, I'm shaking. Riley is fast asleep in her bed, and the hand that has mine squeezes.
The rides shut down at midnight, but the carousel was still spinning, empty, except for the man with the bag over his head. I work nights at Riverside Fun Park for minimum wage. I needed the money and the daytime to study. I'm supposed to sweep popcorn into piles no one cared about and lock up. But at midnight, everything had to shut down. That night, I did my rounds, the same way I always did. Ferris wheel lights, off. Bumper cars, dead. Tilt-a-whirl, silent. But the carousel, it was still moving. Lights flashing, music warbling like a dying music box. And on one of the painted horses sat a man, a burlap sack tied around his head. He didn't move, didn't wave, just sat there, slowly circling. The carousel slowed, stopped. I let out a shaky laugh. I've seen all kinds of weird shit here. This guy wasn't even the strangest. Probably some drunk who was too far gone to know the park closed. I radioed security. No answer. Not surprising. Dave fell asleep halfway into his shift most nights. But when I blinked, he was gone. The horse was empty. A hand clamped my shoulder from behind. I spun. No one there. The only sound was the carousel clicking as it started turning again. When I turned back around this time, every horse had a rider, all wearing burlap sacks. I wasn't about to stick around for this magic show. I bolted for the gates, chains wrapped tight around them, padlocked. I hadn't done that. My radio crackled. "Dave, did you call me?" I snatched it, looking back. The carousel was empty again. I held the radio to my mouth, my eyes, never leaving the carousel. "Dave, something's happening. I need you to call 911. There's a man with a weapon." Even if that last part wasn't true, I needed people fast. Static came back to me. I clicked the button ready to say it again when I heard my own voice come through, flat and distorted. "I'm good. It was nothing." What the fuck? A jolt of fear shot up my back into my scalp. The park lights flickered. When they came back, the sackheads were standing in the midway, silent, lined up shoulder to shoulder, blocking every exit. Each one carried something: an axe, a pipe, a length of chain. The metal glinted under the sickly carnival lights. I backed away, chest heaving. Then the carousel sputtered and died. The music stopped, and in the silence, they moved. Not charging, not screaming, just closing in step by step. The sound of chains dragging across asphalt made my throat close up. I ran down the midway, digging my hands in my pockets. Fuck. My phone's in my locker, stupid park rules. I ran past the Ferris wheel, past the tilt-a-whirl. My shoes slapped at the pavement, lungs burning, until I realized the sackheads weren't behind me anymore. There was no relief. I spotted one. By the ring toss. Another swayed gently in the seat of the Ferris wheel. A third leaned against the ticket booth, tapping the glass with a knife. Still I ran. I aimed for the trees. Old oaks skirted the fence. If I could climb, jump the fence, I could be out. I scrambled up the bark like a woman half mad, boots slipping, fingers clawing for holds. I hauled myself up into the limbs and looked over the fence. Freedom was a breath away. Then all the carnival lights blasted back on. Every ride flared like daylight. The midway stood empty. The merriment was silent, but my view from the branches told me what my gut already knew. I looked back. My skin crawled. They were there. Every single masked figure, standing on the carousel, spinning slowly, each one facing outward. I could feel their eyes on me as they slowly went round and round. My throat closed. I climbed out on the last branch, heart punching through my ribs. I can feel it cracking, wanting to snap under my weight. I had to make it. If they were on the rides, maybe the parking lot beyond the fence was clear. Maybe they were anchored to those horses. I dropped the last few feet and hit the ground just beyond the fence. Gravel dug in my palms. I scrambled to my feet. I stared out at the street. There, the dull halo of the highway, the smell of diesel and escape. I ran with everything I had. I looked back but didn't see anything. I was terrified one of them would jump out in front of me. I made it to the street, and relief stunned my bones. I can hear a car in the distance. I'd be damned if I let it pass. I stepped out in the middle of the street. Bent with exhaustion, I put my hands on my knees. I felt like I was going to pass out. I took a breath and stood, and my world spun. Every light I'd just left behind blinked back on in synchronous malice. The carousel's warped tune drifting on the air, and I realized the street lamps were just the Ferris wheel. The road was the midway. I had never left. My stomach flipped with sudden vertigo. The park had swallowed me whole. If you ever see someone at the edge of a park fence, don't wave. Don't look twice. Because once you see the park, it sees you back.
The first rule of a firefight is control your breathing. In, 2, 3. Out, 2, 3. I learned that in the sandbox, staring at a door not unlike my own front door right now. The problem is, that lesson doesn't account for the sound of your wife sobbing quietly into the kitchen tiles behind you, or the fact that the thing trying to get in isn't using a boot or a battering ram. It's using its head. Thump, crack, thump. A wet, meaty sound, like a side of beef being dropped on concrete. Each impact shakes the reinforced deadbolt I installed myself. The wood around the frame is splintering inwards. They've been at it since the digital clock on the stove flipped to 1:02 a.m. A rhythmic, patient torture. My .45 is a cold, familiar weight in my hand. But what good is a bullet against something that doesn't seem to feel pain? Sarah grabs my ankle, her fingers ice cold. "The window," she whispers. I risk a glance over my shoulder. Outside the kitchen window, a face is pressed against the glass. It's pale, like something that's never seen the sun. The eyes are dark pits, but I can feel them fixed on me. It's not trying to break in. It's just watching, corralling us. Thump, crack. This time, a fissure snakes up the center of the door. Through the splintered gap, I see a sliver of the night. A shadow moves in front of the crack, and I just know something is peering in. Then it pulls back and slams forward again. The worst part? I'm running low on bullets. But my last one is for Sarah, not for them. I won't watch them pull her apart. I made that promise to myself 2 minutes ago.
I didn't call the police. No one ever calls the police after midnight. No use. I called my boyfriend, Mark. He was supposed to be here an hour ago. A new sound cuts through the night. Not a bang, a scrape. Metal on concrete. It's coming from my driveway. I crawl to the pantry door, pressing my eye to the slim crack where the hinges are. My front door is 20 feet away. The scrape gets louder, then stops. I see a shadow fall across the frosted glass of the door. It's a long, distorted shadow. My breath hitches. My phone, clutched in my hand, suddenly vibrates. A text. The screen illuminates the tiny pantry. Mark, 12:15 a.m. Almost there. Just turning onto your street. Get the door ready. Relief floods me, so potent it makes me dizzy. Thank God. Mark is big. He played college football. He'll know what to do. I watch the shadow at the door. It doesn't move. Then my phone vibrates again. Mark, 12:16 a.m. There's one standing in the middle of the road, just standing there. Need to find another way around. The shadow at my door cocks its head, as if listening to a distant sound. My phone lights up a third time, and this time it's a call, and the blood in my veins stop. I'm terrified to answer, but he's out there. For me. "Mark?" I whisper into the phone. All I hear are grunts and chewing sounds. I already know he's gone. I close my eyes, tears falling down my cheeks. The shadow at my door turns, and now the scraping sound starts again. But this time, it's not coming from the driveway. It's coming from the side of the house, from the kitchen window, the one I always forget to lock.
The fissure in the door becomes a mouth. Splinters fall like teeth. Something presses its face into the gap, inhaling deeply like it can smell our fear. Sarah clutches my leg. 2 rounds left. One for me, one for her. It's the only mercy left in the playbook. But as I look at my wife, I can't bring myself to do it. I look back. The pale thing is no longer at the window, and when I swivel back to my doorway, it's there. Up close, it's worse than I imagined. Tall, slick-skinned, head bent sideways like it's listening to something only it can hear. Behind it, Chloe, our neighbor, sways on her feet, eyes black pits, hands twitching like a marionette waiting for a string. Sarah sobs behind me. I level the .45, both hands trembling. "Stay behind me," I say, voice breaking. Then, the thing's mouth unhinges wider than its skull. I fire, once, twice. The gun kicks and echoes. 2 kill shots I know I hit dead on, and for a heartbeat I think maybe. Then a searing pain grips my chest. Its claws, like liquid fire reaching inside me and branding my ribs. My knees buckle. The useless gun slides from my fingers. Sarah screams my name. The room tilts. Everything goes black. I open my eyes to sunlight. The kitchen is quiet. Dust motes drift in beams of morning light through the open door. Sarah lies on the floor, curled up, breathing, alive. It's over. It's always over by dawn. They only come once every 13 months, always after midnight, always the same way. As long as anyone can remember, not just here, but in every town across the country, they only take 3. No more, no less. Chloe must have been the 3rd. I push myself up, but the pain in my chest stops me cold. I look down. The skin over my heart is scorched black, a mark shaped like a black hole. It pulses with pain. I know what it means. In 13 months, when the pale things come again, I'll be the first to die.
And there you have it. Some things that happen after midnight. I hope you liked this week's stories. If you do, share the fun with a fellow horror fan. Stay safe out there, and I want you all to have an amazing rest of the week. Well, until next time.